it's always funny. You know, we talked a little about what's going on in China, where they're basically saying there's like a war on sissy men, and that's why you had to cancel your trip there.
Yeah.
Danny was going to do a trip to China, and they said the war on sissy.
I'm out.
They said they're banning sissy men. Yeah, but it's interesting. They basically in South Korea. This article was on Irish Times, and it said, "Out with man haters, the rise of anti-feminism in South Korea. Male activists protest at rallies and online over a culture that they see is biased against them." So it's interesting because in Asia, there isn't like the racial component because most people, it's sort of like
they don't have white men to vilify.
Right. It's so everyone's sort of the same thing, right? And I think one of the reasons why all of this stuff is so touchy is because race is an incredibly touchy subject in North America, and they attach everything to it because of that, right? So if you go out there and you say, you know, even no matter what it is, if you say, I don't like the vaccine, they go, oh, you're, you know, white supremacist. If you're saying like, you know, women are a problem, they say you're white supremacist. Like no matter what it is,
I mean,
they attach it to being
literally
racist.
said
right?
fucking that.
Yeah, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, he came out.
He straight up said, he was like, if you're against the vaccine, you know, it's all white supremacists and misogynists.
Of course.
Racists. It's so weird to be like, if you don't like the vaccine, you're probably a misogynist. Like, what a crazy linkage.
Well, that linkage doesn't stick, but the racist linkage, it does stick here just because once people hear racist, it like fries their circuit in their mainframe where they don't really hear what you said. You go, that guy, all they hear is, murmur, 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 Danny racist. And they don't need to know why,
well,
right?
they know that it works. That's why they do it.
But it is interesting there where, you know, this is kind of what it looks like. But these guys are doing stuff where you go, it's the opposite extreme where if you did this here, you'd be basically in jail if you held one of these rallies here.
You know what this actually reminded me of? Because they had like this, it's kind of like a real No Man vibe.
It was
like if you ever watched fucking like old Married with Children, like, and they would have these No Man protests.
It is No Man protests.
Like, and you're like, they're just doing this.
There's the hat if you want to fucking pop it on.
They're just doing this and shit in real life.
The No Man. yeah. But they basically said, so the things that they were doing are crazy. They go, they have shown up whenever women rallied against sexual violence and gender biases in South Korea. Dozens of young men, mostly dressed in black, taunted the protesters, squealing and chanted, thud, thud, to imitate the noise they said ugly feminist pigs made when they walked.
Honestly, I was like, man, this shit's harsh. Like, these guys are going like this is like the Boyscast does not endorse what's going on in South Korea. I would just like to make that clear.
Yeah. And it's dead serious too. It's not even joking, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's no jest here. They're just like, they're just straight up being like, we hate women.
Can you imagine that? They go, the women walking and they all go, thud, thud, thud. That's so
like,
crazy.
wait till they've thudded away. Yeah, it's like.
They squeal when they try to give their speeches. Oh my God. Isn't that crazy? So,
it's insane.
Yeah, the reaction there to this stuff is wild. But, you know, they said, so these guys mean very business. And what you're sort of saying is that the women here, maybe those microaggressions aren't seeming so bad.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You need to show them
so
a video.
Lucky with the microaggressions.
You should be so lucky with the microaggressions.
Yeah.
When you show a video of like, this is what your Chinese sisters are dealing with. South Korea. But they said these male activists have targeted anything that smacks of feminism, forcing a university to cancel a lecture by a woman they accused of spreading misandry. So it's literally bizarro world over there where the girls, they basically have like a bizarro female Jordan Peterson that's getting her lectures canceled.
Yeah, it is fascinating. Yeah, there is a fascinating element too, where it's like they have the same thing, but they've just removed like the block of race.
They removed the block of race.
It's more just like seems like class is like the main one, and then it's like class and then like gender kind of, because it seems like they're all kind of disenfranchised because none of them can get jobs or whatever.
That's a big part of it. Yeah. And if you actually want to boil down what's happening, it kind of is always the problem is. It's like most people just want to hear their sort of like gripes be heard. And they want to feel seen to some degree. Yeah. And that's all. If you actually look when people go crazy, that's a big part of why. It's like when they're being gaslit by society. And then on top of that, you have essentially all of the policy always they never look at when they go, oh, men are, 80% of this, right? And they go, let's fix that. They just basically, they hold like this generation of 20-year-olds accountable for what the generation of 50-year-olds did, right? So if you look at it, you go, well, it's worse to be a man. And they refuse to address that, like, well, it isn't for if you're 20, but it was for 50-year-olds. And if they're like, hey, we're going to fire people that are men, like, they don't fire the 50-year-olds who've been there for 40 years.
They just don't let anybody come in.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what it is? It's the gaslighting thing is obviously like a really good way to put it. But like the term makeup call in sports?
Yeah.
Where it's like in basketball,
Yeah,
like these are makeup calls. This is what it is. Okay. It's like they made bad calls in the past. And like, if you don't know what a makeup call is like in basketball, it's like they call a foul.
Makeup call.
They call a foul and they go, and then the ref calls a foul, but the ref instantly is like, I made a mistake right there. So then they call a foul on the other end to make it fair. But everybody knows that neither of them were fouls. So they're just like, everybody is aware that like both of those were not fouls, but we have to make, so it's like, that's what this is. They're straight up being like, look, there was some thing and we're just going to write it with essentially like revenge. And like, it is unfair, but the problem is they're not willing to admit that it's unfair. They're being like, no, you're actually not qualified. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Like it's you, not structurally. And then they have to pretend like everybody has to pretend like it's actually true.
Right. And then it's like, and then you kind of say, oh, this is why when people blame women or, the same way when people blame men, it's like, well, it's not individual chicks' faults. It's like, yeah, the government and the fucking media and all of the whatever, anyone in charge of anything, like needs scapegoats for politics.
Oh, I mean, especially for politics, like these, not even politics, corporations as well. These are all people who are just trying to hang on to their jobs.
Right. So everyone needs scapegoats for, a million reasons.
Yeah.
And then, it like forces people to pit each other against each other. Right. Mm-hmm. But the women, there is that element of like, there is a fundamental, like, difference between men and women that's never going to go away. So that like, argument's always going to exist. And especially until most people are gay. So in, 5 years, there is always going to be that thing where it's like, well, yes, you might have problems with guys, but like, you don't have to fucking live with one and have a partner that's one. So it's like, obviously that's going to be your main person that you have to deal with and have like problems with or whatever. Right. But so over there, it's gone so far that they have the feminists, like Ben Shapiro basically goes to the thing and she fucking schools college kid males with facts and logic.
Yeah. About how men suck.
No, she goes, well, they go, some guy goes, excuse me, well, why do men die later then? She goes, because we are less stupid than stupid men. And they go, well, how do you know that they're stupid men? And she goes, because it's in the title, stupid men. Those are the videos that are going viral in the feminist community. she's banned from speaking in the school. So, and then they said, but the things these guys are demanding is pretty funny. They go, they vilified prominent women, criticizing Ann San, a 3 times gold medalist in the Tokyo Olympics, for her short haircut. So a big problem is they have sort of signs that say like, no more bowl cuts.
That's a weird stance to be taking in Korea.
Yeah, they're done with the short haircuts on women. That is funny though. Your chick comes home and she's like, because here it is, anything anyone does is sexist, but you chick comes home and she's like buzzed her head, goes full feminist, which I've seen a lot of girls do where that is one of the steps on becoming a feminist. Like for a lot of them is like, involves a head shave situation. Mm-hmm. And then the boyfriend or whatever goes out and he's like, gets his sign and poster board and he starts protesting no more bowl cuts on women. So they're big. They don't like the short hair and they don't like them getting fat. This is a big problem. They probably the body hair, man. That would make them peak if they had to fucking deal with the shit that's going on over here. The armpit hair. They said they've threatened businesses with boycotts, prompting companies to pull advertisements with the image of pinching fingers that said ridiculed the size of their male genitalia. So
projecting much, South Korea?
Well, I'm on their side now. If they're gonna fucking besmirch the names of our Japanese or fucking South Asian brothers' dongs.
Yeah.
What is it? South Korea, right?
South Korea.
Our South Korean brothers' dongs.
Yeah.
Well, now all of a sudden you hear at the beginning, you go, well, because it might just been, the same thing they do here where they take a small case and they go, this is everyone. We've got a little group of 10, 15,000 men yelling big noises. And then we look further into it and we find out this is a retaliation for billboards calling their dicks small. What do they expect?
By the
and
way,
they said, no, our dicks aren't small. You're gross pigs.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole
And
thing
you
is-
left structural damage on my fucking wall when you leaned against it.
Also, it's this big, not this big.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So basically, what they're saying is that'd be funny if they won the battle and then the advertisement pulled it and they put up the new one with the guy putting
exactly.
two big hands.
Yeah.
And there's a girl they pulled down the end where it's like, I don't know what this small dick ad would be for, but like, empower yourself. Don't be a small dick. Don't be with some small dick guy. And then they've changed it with an ad that like, every dick is huge.
Also, not to like get too deep in the weeds on stereotypes.
Well,
but,
they're
like,
saying that you're
but
not
I'm
going to get
saying-
too deep in their vagina.
I know, but I'm saying also, but like, in South Korea, like it's almost as patronizing as being like this thing is probably like equally.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like, not
But
to get in the whole stereotype game,
I think
but
all
it's
of
like
our-
also it is a
No,
known.
all of our South Korean brothers have nice hogs.
By the way, if any-
whose side are you on?
I was actually going to say if there's any South Korean
Notice that
people
he took off the
listening-
no ma'am hat and then immediately starts
Yeah.
fucking dissing dongs.
No, I'm not dissing dongs.
Next thing you know, he's gonna be. Next
dongs-
thing you know, Danny's gonna be telling you that your hairline's reducing.
all dongs matter.
Reducing, so funny.
Airlines reducing?
That's what they said. Your hairline's reducing.
Oh, your
She didn't say
hairline. If
receding.
you said airline, I was like, what the fuck?
She said they've threatened businesses, they've done all this stuff, and it turns out that they're putting posters up there saying that the men have small dongs.
Yeah, I will say that the economic element of this is interesting because that was kind of the way that like men for a long time didn't have to care about this bullshit, as they were like they could just go to their job and make some money or whatever. But like I guess their economy's such where they're like, yeah, we don't have anything to do but protest.
Well, that's why here it's like, that's who you get protesting, like college kids taking fucking some bullshit. You don't get a lot of people at every protest if they're taking, engineering. You get a lot of people at every protest that take, the subjects that I went to once the entire semester and got 80.
Totally. But also it seems like here the people protesting, you go, hey, would you like a job? And they're like, no. And these people are like, hey, would you like a job? And they're like, absolutely, I would.
Right. Well, the backlash to some seems bewildering. Well, it seemed bewildering until I found out about your small dick posters. Now it doesn't seem so bewildering.
I want to see this small dick poster.
Well, it's a girl pinching the dicks. I go,
Well, what's the product?
Oh, it's so small.
Like it's not even a product. It's just like
it's like
women.
service.
Yeah, it's just like women united against men, and it's just like a little girl just fucking like this, and you're like, what's the product?
It's a
here?
public
There's no
service.
product.
Yeah.
Is this selling something? No, it's just kind of belittling men.
It's just a belittling men thing. It's sort of like when you see believe in God, but it's not brought to you by a specific church.
Yeah, it's just like a guy who bought a billboard.
That guy bought
Saw a lot of
billboard.
those. Remember when we drove through Waco?
We saw some wild ones over
Waco
there. Yeah.
had like a bunch of really weird, like hellfire, brimstone type of like.
Yeah.
And then just like you would see the odd, like in Texas, the odd billboard that's just like Trump's sick.
Yeah.
Brought to you by like Jeff. Jeff bought a fucking billboard and says Trump's sick. Fucking put that in your pipe and smoke it lives.
That is what it is.
It was just like a guy.
Brought to you by Jeff.
It's like basically regular people are finding out you can just buy a billboard.
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But okay, so back to the article. They said, we don't hate women. This is what the guys say. So they're doing the same thing probably that the media does here, where they pick like, the farthest person and they act like that's everyone. But the actual spokesperson says, we don't hate women and we don't oppose their rights, said the head of Man on Solidarity, one of the country's most active anti-feminist groups, but feminisms are evil. And then he said, also, we are packing heat. So that's what he's also said.
Also, the smear campaign against us is nothing but that.
But yeah, at the end of the day, no one wants policy that like specifically hurts them. So they sort of pit people against each other where they go, okay, it's going to be better for you and better for this group and worse for this group. And I think a lot of times it is just like, okay, well, like even what I always say here, it's like, okay, whatever. You know what? Fine. Just fucking admit it.
Yes.
Don't just admit.
Exactly. We said it on
Just
recently.
admit it.
Yeah. It's like there's always going to be some group getting the short end of the stick.
Yes.
That's just like, unless you live in a proper like utopia where there's no such thing as unfairness.
And it'll be different in every case.
It's always going to be different, but it's always going to be someone, and you might find yourself in that group.
You know what? Fuck me if you want to fuck me. Don't leave and tell me we never had sex. That's all I'm saying.
Sounds like
if you're gonna bend me over and spank my ass, You know what I mean?
Yeah, just fucking,
Without lube.
Don't tell me there's no handprint on that ass.
When I see you the next day and I go, really gave it to me last night, they go, wasn't me.
Gave what to you? Gave what now?
Yeah, that's the part.
Yeah.
Well, they said South Korea has the highest gender wage gap among wealthy countries. Less than 1/5 of all national lawmakers are women, so they're trying to say it's actually pretty bad there. And women make up only 5.2% of the board members of publicly listed businesses compared to 28% in the United States. But again, that is that generation, because then they go on to say that men go to college at a lesser rate. And then on top of that, which is a pretty reasonable point, they said the men have to go do military service. Mm-hmm. So the girls finish high school and go to college, and then the guys take a year or two to go to do their military service that the girls don't have to do. So it is like a messy thing to unwind all this.
Absolutely.
And the only people it hurts is the 20-year-olds, because every other generation, it was set up for difference. So,
well, they're getting out of fucking college, and they're like, these girls are way ahead of them, life-wise.
Well, that's why
and then they're also like, yeah, you're not allowed to go to college.
One of the most people that you see kind of, pushing for policies that hate 20-year-olds is like rich actors, because, people like that where they go, they're fine, they've got money or whatever, right? And it's not to say that things are perfect for women or anything, but don't fucking, act like you can just rejig everything. And there's no repercussions of playing God on all of this stuff.
Of course. I mean, just admit that you're just look, we're punishing, in order for us to get the statistical makeup that we desire, which takes dude, you got to think of it more.
Well, you go, who is this? Yeah, who are we taking it away from? They should have to quit.
Yeah, but exactly. But you got to also, but they don't want to quit. And the way to keep their jobs is by doing this shit. But you got to think of this more as a giant ship, you don't fucking turn a giant ship on a U-turn. Well, it's a fucking, to turn a giant ship around. It's takes a long time.
But don't you think that should have to be? It's someone should be really making these points out in public where they go, listen, we're allowed to have these things, but they need to be generational. If they go, hey, we need to look at different generations differently. If you go, hey, Gen X needs to be, you go, okay, we need these jobs to be 50% men, 50% women. You go, no, what you're not allowed to do is just be, that means it's 80% women for 20-year-olds and then 80% men for 50-year-olds.
And then
they have to have some skin in the game if they're going to, it's because it's older people a lot of times that are making these policies. And
of course it is. It's
at least
it's literally the people who benefited from all this stuff.
And they have no skin in the game.
No, well, they do have skin in the game. They have skin in the game in the sense that they know that they're if I don't do the right things now, they're coming for me.
No, I'm saying they should have to have skin in the game if they're going to be proposing policies.
Oh, for sure.
That only, the fucking, yes, it's the same thing as when people don't understand intersectionality. Guess what's another sectionality? The generation you're in. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? In terms of lots of things, in terms of were you more likely to be able to fucking get rich or buy a house? What was the job market like? The year you finished college matters. So if you're going to say, hey, there's all these new things, well, make it across generations. Dude, or fucking shut your mouth.
Dude, think of it this way, from an investing standpoint. It's there's some people who are I can't remember who I was talking to or reading, but some people started their fucking investment career that in 99, okay? And they fucking lost everything. And some people started in 2002 at the absolute bottom. Somebody finished college and started that day, and they made a fucking fortune because the stock market went up for 20 straight years. Or whatever, and they're just I don't know, it's timing. It's sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't.
Yeah, agreed. So it is messy stuff to unravel, but it's I just think that if they're going to look at any of this stuff, they need to also include the age bracket.
Yeah. And just admit that some of this stuff is punitive by design.
Yeah, of course. Well, you can't have a positive thing without a negative thing, in most cases.
But they don't want to say that. They're not it's punitive. They're all it's the equity stuff.
Well, because they say it's not a zero-sum game when it is, in fact, a zero-sum game in many cases.
Yes.
So, especially when you're looking at spots to college. Of course, that's a zero-sum game. What are you, mental?